This is kind of a part 2. I am going over the DSM diagnostic criteria that I shared with my therapist. They went over the DSM criteria with me and kind of gave me their opinion on whether or not I met the criteria. They think I do meet the criteria that I am autistic. This is not a formal diagnosis because they're therapists. They cannot diagnose autism, but their opinion matters a lot to me because they've been my therapist for over 3 years, and because they do have additional training in autism specifically, and they're autistic themselves. Just kind of going over the criteria and what I shared that I think qualified. So the other video was A, this is B criteria. So the B criteria is kind of put under this umbrella of restricted and repetitive behaviors. And there are 4 in this. So there's B1, B2, B3, and B4. But for this one, you only have to meet 2 of the 4. B1 is called stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, use of objects, or speech. A lot of us might kind of casually think of this as stimming, because some of the examples are things like hand flapping. I do a whole lot of fidgeting. I think everybody fidgets to a degree. It's just kind of about the frequency is my understanding. I think probably the longest lasting thing I've done for my whole life is I've been a lifelong blankie kid. I had a baby blanket. I've changed it 2 times, so I've had 3 blankies in my life, but I will rub it on my face as a comfort thing. And when I don't have my blanket, I will use my hair. I do this as I'm working on my computer or just doing other things. That's the first time I've ever done this in public. But yeah, so that's just something I do, and I didn't even realize until I was an adult, and I've never hid that from my husband. I just hide it from literally everybody else. But he highlighted years ago, he's you do that when you don't have your blanket. That's you kind of sub your hair in for your blanket. And I didn't realize that, but that's absolutely true, because when I have my blanket, that's what I do. But some things from childhood on this one. I remember as a kid, I think I was in 1st grade, and a kid said, "Ew, that's gross," and pointed to my sleeve. I had a long sleeve shirt on. I had been sucking on my sleeve, and so it was all wet. And yeah, that effectively shamed me, so I quit doing that. But I know that that had not that wasn't a one-off thing. I would chew on or suck on my sleeves, or sometimes on the collars of my t-shirts as a kid, until that kid did that. And then after that, I used my hair and would suck on my hair. My mom thought that that was really gross and got on me about that, and she actually snipped my hair one time when I had sucked on it, because she got so sick of telling me to stop putting my hair in my mouth that she cut my hair right there. And so then I quit doing that. But then at school I would chew on pencils, I think kind of as a replacement stim. And then I think in adulthood it became playing with my hair, flipping it up against my face like that. B2 is insistence on sameness, inflexibility with routine or ritualized patterns. So this one, I don't feel I have a lot of this as an adult, but I had more of it as a child. I was very repetitive with my food as a kid. I had very limited foods that I liked, and I wanted to literally eat the same thing all the time. When I was in elementary school, my grandma would watch us before school because my mom had to go to work crazy early. And so she would get us ready for school and make us breakfast and stuff. And I remember my grandma making kind of a rule, I guess, for me that I couldn't eat the same breakfast every single day. And the breakfast was ramen noodles. I wanted to eat instant ramen noodles for breakfast 5 days a week that I was going to school. And she only let me eat 3 breakfasts, which is still a lot of ramen noodles for breakfast. But yeah. I also had the same cold lunch packed for me every day, every school day. Just a lot of repetition with food. I also watched the same movie literally every day. For years I watched Matilda. For years I watched Harriet the Spy. As a kid, if I thought I knew what to expect and then plans changed, that was really emotionally difficult for me. Like even just thinking about that now, like I can just feel this like pit in my stomach of like, I still probably have a bigger emotional reaction to change of plans or change in expectations now, but I feel like I have gained a decent amount of flexibility. One kind of like ritualistic or really repetitive thing I do still have is I have like a certain blanket that I have to sleep. And then I have to sleep with 3 total blankets. I have to have like my blanket over my arm and like partly in my hand and over my pillow. Like there's like kind of there's a ritual to it. B3 is restricted or fixated interest with abnormal intensity or focus. This can include abnormal attachment to unusual objects or pervasive interests. This one is kind of the opposite of B2 for me. This one I see a lot in my adulthood and struggle a little bit to see it in my childhood. But I did a video of my therapist kind of answering why that might be, that like trauma can kind of disrupt this one for kids. Abnormal attachment to objects, lifelong blanket kid, as I said earlier, it's not an unusual object, but I guess because it is like a lifelong thing and not like a childhood during like typical childhood years where a child would want a comfort object, that kind of becomes more abnormal. But more so, when I'm into something, I'm like really, really into it. For example, like I wouldn't really say that I'm like a true crime person in general, but when I have gotten interested in a specific case, I will watch every minute a streamed or recorded court case, like literally every minute of a case. I watched every minute of the Casey Anthony trial years ago. I watched every minute of the Maya Kowalski case. Like I am super into the Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildebrandt story. And anyway, so when I get into something like that, it's like I will watch every documentary, I will read every bit of information that the police departments release on cases like that. Any books that come out, I will read. It's like any bit and piece that I can find, I will consume. B4 is hyper or hypo sensitivity to sensory input. So this is like the sensory processing differences criteria. And this is one that I very clearly, in my opinion, had from childhood and into adulthood. A huge place that it shows up for me is with food. I am a lifelong picky eater, and most of my difficulty with food is about like texture of the food rather than the taste of the food. My life became less stressful related to food when I became capable of cooking for myself, because I can cook things to the right doneness. Like I can undercook pasta so that it doesn't get mushy or slimy, or I can overcook chicken or other meats so that they're not too moist. Mushy, slimy, things like that are kind of the big aversion for me. But also sort of like overly soft foods, things like applesauce, mashed potatoes, yogurt, even if they taste really good to me, and like some of those do, it's like I can eat them a little bit, but I get the ick, and then I can't for like months at a time. Another area of sensory stuff that shows up for me is with water. My husband like laughs at me when we have shower together, because when I'm in the shower, I spend a whole lot of time doing this because I hate water on my face. I am able to do certain things to make it better. Like we have a shower head that has a faucet that isn't like sprinkly, so the water isn't like coming out everywhere. It's like one clear area where I can like either be in the water or out of the water very distinctly. That helps. Also things like I immediately step out of the shower, wrap my hair, because I cannot stand for my own hair to drip on my shoulders. I also and then as soon as I wrap my hair, I like really roughly dry my body really rapidly so that like none of the water that is on me can like run down my leg or down my arm or anything like that. I'm like making myself uncomfortable just talking about this. But yeah, I have to have like kind of a system for tolerating water. I really struggle with like lotions or anything that's like oily or greasy, like sunscreen. Also, a couple of stories that my mom has often retold that I have now started to see through the lens of sensory differences. As a baby, like a baby, I hated the car and would just like scream my head off anytime I was in the car. They could not figure out for the longest time why I freaked out every time I was in the car. When I got, I think it was a year old back when I was a kid, where you can flip the car seat forward to where they could see me, they realized that I was like doing this each time a tree would go by. Like I was like staring at the tree and watching it move and screaming, like with like terror in my eyes. And so I think it was like a visual sensory overload thing. Anyway, but once they realized what I was afraid of was the trees and stuff moving past the window, they would pin like a blanket over all the windows like that I could see out of, and then I was fine, and like car rides were fine. Another story that I had always heard and thought was kind of weird but didn't really see through a sensory lens until recently was my mom has always said that I potty trained myself shortly after my second birthday. The very first day that she ever put like real, like regular little girl panties on me, I, of course, peed myself, and she had been in the other room, but she said that I screamed so much that she was sure that I was going to be like bloody or like that I had gotten really hurt, because that was like the way I was screaming was like I was in severe pain. And so she was just baffled when she ran in there, and I was just staring at pee running down my leg. But that was acting like I had been injured. And that she said I literally never had an accident after that. Like that there was no potty training work on her end, that I just freaked out the first time I peed on myself, and then I never did it again. And from my perspective now, like I have to think that that sensory experience was so upsetting to me that I like basically magically figured out potty training on my own just to avoid having to experience that sensation again. But again, I'll throw in here that my therapist did say like that they have known me for 3 years. So I can't say with 100% certainty that these are the things that they decided for sure qualify for me. They may have also inserted some things that I have told them in the past, but I just thought somebody still might enjoy this.